I'm going to introduce my co-host for this next segment first. Welcoming back Alec, Whitewell Comics. How you doing, Alec?
Doing great. How are you? I'm unreasonably excited for this, but I'm sure not as excited as you are.
Well, I'm not going to BS any longer. I want to welcome the guy who's probably responsible for most of our childhoods, Mr. Kevin Eastman. Kevin, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, thanks. So happy to be here with you guys, hanging out in the Mainframe Comic-Con. This is awesome. Pleasure.
That's our pleasure for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I just got to say for a second, my whole childhood, first toys I ever bought, TMNT, man. So big thanks for joining us. But I'm sure you got plenty of everything you want to talk about. The first question I wanted to get into, and chat, if you guys got questions, feel free to throw them in. I'll try to get to them the best I can. But I wanted to talk about The Last Ronin because I've been into the IDW stuff you guys have been putting together. And I got to hear a pitch about The Last Ronin, and it sounded really awesome. So can you tell us a little bit about this project coming up this summer, hopefully?
Sure, thanks. And again, thrilled to be here with you guys, hanging out on set. Happy Saturday. I got my glass of wine, and so I'm going to make it super extra
awesome.
One of the coolest things in my recent history was working with the incredible Tom Waltz for the last 9+ years on the Turtles IDW ongoing comic series. I mean, I love the series. It's probably the closest thing that I would ever equate to what you set aside the black and white series that Peter and I. This to me was the closest version of that, in that it was intended for the older fans. And its intensity, its tonality, everything was sort of right there where those original fans of the TMNT would want it to be. And so we had such an successful run. I mean, when we got to issue 50, it was sort of mind-blowing to us in every way. And then to deliver issue 100, it was such a fantastic team of artists. And of course, everybody at IDW, Bobby Curnow, and so many others that make that all possible. That was such a milestone, and that as we kind of approached issue 100, Tom and I started talking about The Last Ronin probably about a year beforehand. And The Last Ronin is based on an idea Peter and I had written an outline. It was about 20 pages, beginning, middle, and end structure, and it was written in 1987. And it's something that we always wanted to do together. And Pete's more retired now than ever before, and we didn't want to sort of step back into the limelight with this kind of thing. So I asked if I could adapt this with Tom and take that original structure that was set 30 years in the future in 1987. So what's hilarious is that it would have been set 2017. So 2 years, now, well, it wasn't 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And so I worked through a couple of versions of the notes of what I wanted to do with the redraft of it. Structurally, brought Tom in earlier last year, around January of last year, and we spent the entire year sort of pulling it together as what we thought would make a good story, not only respectful to the original idea, but something that we would place in a Turtle universe that would be, I guess you'd relate it to Dark Knight, only in the sense that it's edgy and it's intense, and it's sort of a netherworld as a Turtle universe. It's not the IDW universe or any of the other Turtle universes, but it's definitely closest to the original Mirage universe. So we want to keep it sort of character focused. It's set 20 years in the future from today, so it's 2040 basically. We don't ever really say that story. So yeah, it's been under development for quite a while, and we started work on it earlier this year in earnest once we got the okay from Nickelodeon, and Tom and I are working away furiously. Andy Kuhn is working away as well. He'll be the main series artist based on my layouts and that kind of stuff. But it's going to be something that is written for, I guess, Tom and I. I'm a huge fan of Tom. Tom's a big fan of mine, so we kind of wrote this for ourselves with homage and respect to the incredible Peter Laird, and we think we're going to do everybody involved some justice, and I think the fans are going to be pretty thrilled when they see it.
Awesome. And I was also going to ask about the IDW series, because obviously it's been going on for a while. It's maybe, in my opinion, my new favorite version of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. when you guys started this thing, I think it was in 2011, if I remember right. Did you guys plan this whole story arc all the way through till now, or have you guys just been kind of building and building and building upon the success of this whole arc?
It's a great question, because it was, you know, when I was brought into it, Tom Waltz had already been brought fully on board, and he had written a scenario that was approved by Nickelodeon where, you know, of what he wanted to see this universe, which was sort of creating a platform where you could tell a lot of different stories and pull from multiple Turtle universes, like whether it be the Archie series. One of Tom's favorite Turtle series was the Fox Kids 2000 series, which was kind of the edgier Turtle series that ran then. But we sort of could pick from all these things, and so he sort of laid out this basic platform, including the reincarnation aspects and some other things, some other changes that were pretty ballsy. I was like, dude, I just love this. I adore this. And again, it was all directed to have that same edge as the original black and white comic. I said, if we can get past the first year, then if the fans don't find our home addresses and, you know, tar and feather us and run us out of town, because it was pretty risky bits in there, I said they're going to buy into it, and I hope they buy into it, because I think it's really fabulous. And you guys stepped up in such a huge way that every, you know, get to year one with the incredible Dan Duncan as a series artist, those first 12 issues. And then we were starting to look, okay, we looked to the next year, and then luckily the fan support was as strong, and the sales stayed strong, so then we could plan a little bit further out. So I think by the time we got into, you know, halfway through year 2, almost into year 3, we said, let's shoot for issue 50 and hope and pray we can make it to issue 50, because that would be awesome.
And
so that's
we frogged that pretty quickly.
Yeah, well, it's your fault. Thank you.
What a strange sentence. It's your fault. Thank you.
But no, that was what was fantastic. By the time we got to issue 50, it was just one of those, you know, pinch yourself, where it's like, this has been great. We've been doing this, and we really felt like the characters that had been brought from other universes and re-involved and reimagined, as well as the new characters like Old Hob and so many others. We said, all right, let's go crazy, and let's shoot to where we would like to be at issue 100, and then do one of those lots of finger crossing and praying. Yeah, man, you guys showed up, and we had such a blast. That was, you know, I do, and I brag about Tom a lot, because I think he's, you know, look, you had making a comic book. It takes a village, as you guys well know, and it's like, you know, we've got you know, say my input, and the incredible series editor who for the same 100 issues as Bobby Turnow. We had, you know, these fantastic array of artists, you know, everybody from Mateus Santuclo to Dan Duncan originally, Corey Smith. I know I'm going to fit, there's so many others that really, Michael Delanis, on and on, that brought these stories to life, that it really was one of those things that, you know, it was just the greatest adventure. It was like bringing me back to Turtles in a new way, when I thought every Turtle story, you know, had ever had been told. You know, and you know, 300 cartoon shows and all those original movies and all the different series. But these young guys and these artists brought together. But yeah, Tom has accomplished what I think is the definitive Turtle universe in comic series, in my opinion. Kudos to Tom. He should have a tick parade for that.
Yeah. So I'm sure Carson has infinite more questions, and we have some great ones coming from the chat. I'd just like to squeeze my one question in before we get to those. First of all, I met you a number of years ago at the Boston Comic Con. It was an absolute delight. You drew Krang in my hardcover, and you were so excited when I asked for a Krang, and I tell people all the time that you are a pleasure to meet. But my question is that you know, so many properties kind of on paper similar to the Turtles that came out around the time the Turtles did for the cartoon. What do you think contributed to the longevity of Turtles versus a lot of the other stuff back then?
You know, it comes down to I guess I always point it back to the fans, because it's one of those things that you know, just as easily could have failed. You know, I remember people asked me about my favorite spin-off around that time, adjective, noun sort of title. And the first one that came out was Adolescent Radioactive Black Belt Hamsters, which I thought was that was hilarious. And there were a number of other ones that I thought were very clever. And I think a lot of those artists were similar to Peter and I, that wanted to just break into the business. And that it's for the longest time your only options were Marvel or DC. There were a number of really small self-publishers, mostly underground self-publishers, Kitchen Sink Press, Rip Off, and Pacific Comics and Capital Comics that were emerging around that time. But it was hard to find your foot in the door. So we sort of all appreciated our sort of what we call ground level, because you had Marvel and DC, mainstream, and then you had undergrounds, and then the sort of the ground level ones just trying to find a way into business and writing and drawing, telling their own stories. It's funny that that somehow the Turtles managed to evolve and retain this audience when it just as easily could have not. There's so many things that have changed since that time period. But I think by the time we got to the first couple of years of the Turtles, with what Peter and I did with it as a story, at least in the comic book, was around the time that it was just sort of easing into the cartoon opportunity and toys and those kinds of things, which definitely propelled it to a whole other level. At the height of the Turtles comic books, I think we were selling probably 100,000 copies. It was phenomenal. But the first couple cartoon shows were reaching audiences of 1 million plus kids, and so I think that was the idea of the Turtles somehow floated to the top, and it retained this audience base, which is interesting when I fast forward to now, 36 years later. Most of the fans that we meet at shows, like yourself, were the original fans. The guys that were reading it as kids. Whether you came in through the comic book or the cartoon show, it seems like, and I've heard the story a few times, where fan discovering it very young at, say, age 5 through the cartoon show, and around the time he or she was just growing out of it as a juvenile kind of concept, they discovered the black and white comic book.
I don't know what's happened there. We got some audio interference. Hello?
Oh, can you hear me still?
Oh yeah, now you sound good.
Okay. I feel like probably you guys are experiencing the same thing. In this time when we're all doing what we should, which is staying home and being safe. That everybody, in our household and everybody in our neighborhood is all using, the Wi-Fi.
Same time, it's kind of chugging along.
So I think sometimes at night it gets a real bit of a drag on us.
All right, so I do have to get to the chat because there's a lot of activity in the chat. So I want to get to the super chats that aren't necessarily questions first. Stay Puff 1983, I know he's a big fan as well. He says, just want to say thanks for co-creating a huge part of my childhood. So big thanks, Stay Puff 1983, for that. And then we had John's Comments with Kids says, no question, just a reminder, super chats go to charity. Thanks for sharing your time with us, Kevin. But I do want to get into the first question from the chat here. Brandon Stawinski, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, hey, Kevin, I'm loving the Batman TMNT crossover, but will there ever be a Daredevil TMNT crossover, and would you want one?
Oh, my goodness, yeah, that would be definitely, bucket list kind of stuff. It was funny. It was the whole concept of how the Batman. I was a huge fan, as all of us are, of Jack Kirby. My particular favorite Kirby period was the DC Comics period, and one of my favorites in particular was Commandy, The Last Boy on Earth, because it was based on one of the first movies I ever saw in a movie theater back in the day, which was Planet of the Apes. And so, Commandy was sort of an elaboration of that concept, mutant animals ruling the earth and all that kind of thing. So I came up with this pitch for DC to pitch my old friend Dan Didio. And I said, I want to do a Turtles Commandy crossover, because, what more fantastic, opportunity and experience for the Turtles of literally going from the world that they exist in, where they're sort of living underground, in the shadows, and then to go into a world that's this post-apocalyptic world where the animals rule the world, so it might be harder for them to want to come back to the real world. And so Dan responded wonderfully, and he just said, well, that's a great idea, but nobody knows really who Commandy is. Why don't you do like a Turtles Batman crossover? And we were like, what? We didn't know that was on the table, bro. And fortunately for all of us, that was everybody was able to reach an agreement. And then even more fortunately for all of us is that they brought in the incredible James Tinian and Freddie Williams to write and draw it, because those guys really knocked it out of the park in every way. James's script was so thoughtful and careful to sort of make, besides creating interesting stories, really give all the variety of characters and handling a number of those characters, giving everybody a moment and making it still flow and work. And of course, huge fan of Freddie's artwork even before he took on that gig. And so Freddie and I have been friends quite a long time now, since the beginning of that series. So that was great. So, as everybody knows, that's a serious Turtle fan, that there's bits and pieces of the Daredevil origin that are part of the Turtles origin, much like, we borrowed everything from a little bit of Cerebus, a little bit of New Mutants, a little bit of Daredevil, a little bit of everything, sort of all into the blender, and out came the Turtles. But for me, I was a huge Daredevil fan long before Frank Miller came on board. I like the more grounded characters, Captain America, Daredevil, Batman, those kind of characters, I guess. And I still remember when this issue 158, when they introduced this new penciler, and I was like, hey, this guy's pretty good. And he, Frank Miller blew us all away. 30 issues. So that would be a dream project. I don't think Marvel would ever happen, but I have ideas for it if they ever.
And obviously, we have the Power Rangers crossover right now too.
That's a lot of fun. Yeah, that's been a lot of fun.
Which I'm a
Power Rangers guy too. No, it's like, it was funny because we did, even before the Batman Turtle crossover, we did the Ghostbusters Turtle, and I was like, the guy with the little icon with Mr. Stay Puft. I was like, that was one of my favorite movies.
Nice.
So I thought that was a pretty great crossover.
All right, next question that popped up says, grew up with the OG Turtles. Thanks for the great childhood. Any chance we get another live action movie again?
It is something that I think we're all hopeful for. And to me, I was, because, I have no real say or approval anymore. But it's one of those, they did bring me in to give my opinion on the 2014-2016 movie. There were issues that I felt they should have done a bit differently. They were definitely going for a different look, and it was sort of, whatever they wanted to use for rampant, they used, whatever they didn't. I did tell them I thought it was kind of problematic to root for an underdog that's 7 feet tall and bulletproof. It has, the nose. But I did, I was really pleasantly, I really enjoyed the 2016 movie in the sense that we finally got to see a really great version of Bebop and Rocksteady on the big screen. There were moments in those that were great. There were ones that I didn't care for as much. But my pitch when asked of the next evolution of Turtles for entertainment and live action, I said, it was my opinion that you should do something like the Daredevil TV series. You could do a multi-episode series, perhaps a couple seasons. But if you could do it in that tone, not necessarily you want to see heads lopped off and flying across the screen and all that stuff. But I just think that if you take it back to the importance and the roots of the Turtles, which they always forget, in my opinion, in a lot of the movies, except for the first Turtle movie, which is the martial arts aspect and things. So I think you could do a pretty fantastic series, Matt, with that kind of nice, gritty tone. So I'm hoping that's next. But I have heard that they might be developing talk to me about it.
Oh, interesting. That's awesome. I hope the live action turtle side of things definitely is not over. I would be first in line for any of that stuff. So
get some practical turtle suits again. That'd be great.
And the last, I got another question popped up. Well, here's a rapid fire question. I'm sure you got this 10 billion times over, the last 36 years. But Drew Manchu, he's been killing it, moderating down below, helping us out in the StreamYard. But he asked, who is the best turtle and why is it Raphael?
I love it. No, that's always one of those most challenging questions, because it is always like, who's your favorite turtle? And the obvious answer is, I love them all because Peter and I like their dads, and so they're like our kids. When they press it, I say that I would probably go with Michelangelo was the first turtle drawn. So I said if I had to choose one, I might choose I'd choose Michelangelo just because I was forced. But I'll tell you, when I do stories, or when I would do a story featuring a individual turtle, I really gravitate to Raphael first, because I just feel like he's the most unpredictable. I feel like you can push him further and farther and do more things with him as a character, and especially if you team him up with Casey Jones.
Classic matchup.
Yeah, I was so thrilled when finally able to release the Body Count collected. I think it was 2018. It came out. It was based on a story that Simon Bisley and I did back in 1996, which was probably the most violent turtle story ever done to date. And I think that's why Nickelodeon was real resistant on releasing it. But I was glad it came back out in its original form and style. So, but yeah, that's Casey and Raphael at their best.
Nice. I did have one question about the action figures. It kind of goes on with what Drew just asked. Did you ever have a favorite action figure from the original action figure line?
Yeah, many, besides, the original, obviously the first time we saw all four turtles, having the four turtles, that was fantastic. But I always went for the goofier, the better, the crazier. And, one particular, if I had to single out one, I would choose the giant android body Krang.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
that was just so weird. It was great.
Big Krang fan.
Yeah, but yeah, it was fun. It is amazing how many figures that they actually did back in the day at that time. But it was secondarily I would go to if I besides singling out the android body Krang, was when they did a couple of theme ones, in particular the Star Trek turtles.
Oh yeah, I love those too.
I was a huge Star Trek fan when I was a kid. So actually in my studio over here somewhere, I've got my phaser and my I guess Leonardo as Captain Kirk. But yeah, that was and Universal City Monsters.
Yeah. All right. So going back to the chat, Brandon Stowinski is asking, do you have any planned appearances after the COVID-19 stuff wraps up?
Man, this has been, it's been, I don't want to say this carefully because I know how hard it's been on our fans. And I know, like all of you, I can't go to the comic store these days. We can't enjoy all the things we love about our passion, our comic book universe, and it's one of my favorite personal things is doing the touring and going out and visit with the fans, because it's sort of like an artist, just like writer, artist. It's not a team sport for the most part. It's like I'm sitting at my desk over here, drawing by myself most of the time. So when you actually get out and get to see the fans and sort of like talk about what you've been doing in the series and what they liked about it, what they did, just hear some of those stories from the old days where they would come up and say, I wore the Turtles Halloween costume for 3 years in a row when I was a kid, and that's fantastic. So we just ultimately just to keep our family safe, our loved ones safe, all of you out there who we love and appreciate your support. Keep all of you safe. We cancel shows through June, and we'll look at where everything's at for August. So we had a bunch of shows booked. We usually do about 15 to 18 shows a year. And so we're hopeful that, if we can get a good solid handle on this nasty thing that's disrupted all of our lives and get our country and our world back together, we'll get out again this fall. So stay tuned if you go to KevinEastmanStudios.com, that's our main website where you can find out what we're doing, where we're going, and we've been putting up tons of free content, just free download digital books, and so there's all kinds of stuff you can see and hang out and do. It doesn't cost you anything. Just that's where to stay in tune for when we get things back on track together. That's where we'll let you know first.
Very cool.
Awesome. So I want to thank Fan Dads as well in the chat for the $5 super chat. Real Comic Book Talk. That's a great channel right there. They actually had 2 super chats. And their next question, what current TMNT comic story do you want to see done in a live action movie? Do you have one that you've done from like maybe the recent comics? I think City at War would make a good one personally.
Good call. That was exactly what I was going to say, because I felt like it was anything from the IDW universe, in my opinion, and even in discussions, because Nickelodeon and we chat and talk about different bits of this and that. And I always felt that if after they did the Turtle Batman animated crossover, and I'm drifting to that for just a second and go back to the live action, but when they did the Batman versus Turtles animated thing, I said, it was great because you really dipped your toe in with doing something a bit more edgy, a bit more for the older fan base. I said if you started going back to the IDW universe and explored more movies animated in that type, or I'd love to see any of those done in live action. And Tom and I have talked about it. Tom Walsh and I, and City at War. We both agreed that would be a fantastic thing, because you could set up what had been developed in the early series. By the time you get to City at War, it just really launches into a nice point where Shredder's been doing what Shredder's doing and stuff. So there's a lot of intensity in it. So I would City at War, hands down. Yeah.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So I got to rapid fire these last couple questions here. So we got the Great Legend show in the chat. Basically, just real quick, Bebop or Rocksteady?
Who do I like better?
Yeah.
What it is? Oh man, that's tough, because it was, and actually it's funny. I was just telling you about. I was just mentioning some of the free stuff you can see on KevinEastmanStudios.com. Is like I was going through some archival stuff, and I save everything to the point of like it's bordering on hoarding. Seriously, I save every turtle thing, and I found original scripts and original drawings and designs for the first 5 episodes of Turtles that were done back in, it came out. First 5 episodes came out in that Christmas holiday break in 1987, leading up to New Year's 1988. But I found these original Bebop and Rocksteady drawings that were developed for the toys and for the cartoon show, and I'm like, oh, these are awesome. Because those characters actually originated from the 1986, the role-playing game that we did with Palladium Books. But, man, I guess if I love them both, and like I said, I love them both in the 2016 movie. I thought they did a great job. And it was so funny because Seamus, who was the actor that played Rocksteady, is just happened to be our son Shane, who's one of his favorite wrestlers. We got to meet. We went to a wrestling event just to meet Seamus before he became, Rocksteady. But I would probably go with Rocksteady only because he's just such a bruiser. But it's one of those duos like Casey and Raphael. Both of them together is, individually each they're cool. Together they're awesome. So.
2 great tastes that taste great together.
I always said Rocksteady is easier to beat in that video game. But I want to get back to the chat once again. Big shout out to Ninja House. He's put in 2 super chats. He says, please say hi to Peruvian fans and at Ninja House. And then we got Huda. Yeah, go ahead, man. Sorry.
Hi to all the fans in the Peruvian. Say hi to all the Peruvian fans in Ninja House. What up? Yeah.
Thank you so much. And then the last one I had, of course, Great Legend, $5 more. Thank you, Legend. And we got Hudat Comics Movies. This guy is a big Turtle fan. He just wants to thank you for adding Jenica to the Turtle team. That way his daughter has a role model to add, just like he had when he was a kid. So I was actually going to ask about this myself. What went into creating Jenica and making the decision to make her a turtle and add her to the team?
What was fantastic, and and working with Tom is always a pleasure for the ideas of what we can bring back again from the Turtle universes and what we can sort of bring in directly as they were, or some of the characters that we've created have been reimagined in a couple of different ways, a bunch of different ways. But we, in one of our sort of mind melts, we do these weekly mind melts and talking about different bits of turtle history. And I always said that, I love the idea of a female turtle, to have another strong female role model, another strong female character in the Turtles universe. And there, April, there's a number of them in there, but I felt like when that originally transpired in that live action series, which was actually based on we developed a fourth live action turtle movie with New Line Cinema that was never released. And that had the big hook in that was that we had a fifth turtle in it, a male turtle named Kirby. And then when that developed into the Fox Saban Fox Kids series, it was changed into a girl turtle named Venus. And I felt like just the way that it was brought in last time, it's not something that it came off a little more gimmicky than what we planned and what we hoped. It wasn't intended to be gimmicky or goofy, but it ended up being introduced. And I thought the fans felt that was kind of forced down their throat, and they were like, no, too much. And the turtle costumes were different and everything. So Tom and I said, well, let's find a way to bring a female turtle into the mix. So when Tom created this character and brought her into the Turtle universe in issue 51 called Jenica, she was a foot assassin sent to kill Splinter and just havoc. We both fell in love with her as a character as of the next couple issues. So instead of sort of killing her off, we had Splinter take her under his wing, turn her to the more honorable side when he took over control of the foot and that kind of thing. So as she became more popular as a character, we really looking now like 2 years down the line, and we said, there's a great opportunity where fans already love this character Jenica. Let's see if we can do something like the She-Hulk origin or that kind of thing to create a scenario where she's given a blood transfusion, and we can have her become a turtle and join the team because she already is part of the team. Fans already love her, and then hopefully, fingers and toes crossed that they'll buy into it, because throughout the 100 issues and even what is going on in the ongoing series now, it really comes down to one thing in any of these story discussions: it's story first. We don't want to have anything come off as like, hey, let's kill off a character because we think we'll sell more books, or let's do this because we think it'll sell more books. It's always like, it has to evolve naturally or organically. So we were beyond thrilled when fans accepted Jenica to the family.
Nice. Well, unfortunately, all good things must come to an end, and we've ran out of time. So thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Eastman. This has been a huge bucket list for me. This is absolutely amazing. Where can people find you on the internet if you'd like to lead them to a specific place?
Sure. You actually, KevinEastmanStudios.com is our fan site, and we've been doing as many things like this. We're reaching out, and we're all in the same situation together. We're all at home, but let's keep in touch and reach out. So if you go to KevinEastmanStudios.com, you'll find we're doing more Facebook Live events. We're doing some other Steam events. I've been doing I'm going to do a couple of podcasts with my friend Paul Jenkins, who's a great Marvel writers for Origins and stuff like that. So we're going to do some great stuff there. So just go to KevinEastmanStudios.com and you'll find out what I'm doing and where, and come hang out with us. And guys, it's a great way to spend a Saturday night with you all here.
Thank you.
So, cheers. This was awesome.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Be safe.